Alright, welcome back to Full House 7th edition, where we're playing Vanheim. It is turn 5, and we have a terrifying expansion against some deer tribe. Just the one expansion, because, yeah, this build is questionable. And not a lot of deer tribe, so I think we'll come away with this. There's a shaman back there. Do you have any gems, sir? No, you do not. That's good. We like that. They're shooting at our elves, of course. Curse the archer AI. But, you know, yeah, there goes our chaff. I do think we lose a van here, it's looking like. In fact, we're not out of the woods here yet. So, not the best expansion, but not the worst either. Yeah, we lose 2 van here. So, like I said, you know, this is why I think, you know, why I started moving towards, you know, Protection Bless for them, and why, like, Berserker, why Blood Bond and Barkskin, you know, is so common. Because, like, while they're incredibly killy, like, they do attrit out, you know, with that just complete lack of defense. You know, even against stuff that, like, right, Deer Tribe, not that impressive. So, with only 7 Van Heers left, like, will this be able to expand again? Like, we could take another province. Now, I don't want to say definitely. Depends on what's out there. But it's like, will we be able to take another province without losing a ton of Van Heers? And like, that is a much, you know, more open question. Then we also have an unexpected event. I'm sure this is great. Yeah, some brigands take up residence. This is at least in the forest, so we don't get as much income from there anyway. So that's a win, I suppose. And yeah, I'll catch you guys after the jump. All right. This is the situation and what we're doing about it. Well, Calum must die. So, I don't know. We'll see. They moved into one of the provinces that I was hoping to eventually expand into. And then there's a pretty good chance they go after some other provinces that are pretty critical to us. The other thing, too, is I'm assuming that this is their scales starting to filter in. And it's looking like, you know, their scales are pretty nice, right? This is looking kind of like a scales build. And the birds do tend to struggle with high protection. And, you know, 20 protection isn't crazy high, but I think it's high enough that a lot of the, you know, basic birds will really struggle to deal damage. And whereas our Van Heers are going to chop them up really effectively, the Lance Charge will be a bit of a problem. But, you know, we can just recruit some garbage to soak up the Lance Charges. And so, yeah, I feel like basically we stack up decently well. We have 10 shock resistance on the Bless, so, you know, you could have 15, right? But that'll definitely help, you know, and they probably have a decent air income, also being an air nation, and since we're an air nation, we like air gems. Basically, I think that it's a good matchup for us, and they're definitely in our way. So we'll see. Obviously, you don't really want to start fighting until, you know, around turn 12, whenever our god decides to wake up. So I sent him a message saying that, like, hey, I was planning on expanding to 22, you know, would prefer not to bump. They've already submitted their turn and they didn't bother reaching out. So, yeah, either they're not concerned about a bump or they don't do a lot of diplomacy. Regardless, I'm kind of expecting them to not make that agreement. So we're just going to hang out here and search, because while we might be able to beat 30 Spire Horns, I'm not 100% sure, because that Lance Charge really will hurt when we don't have the extra protection from our Bless. We're going to recruit, you know, just some Deer Tribe down here. And if they do get back to us, you know, next turn will be 1 turn delayed in taking this, although the Deer Tribe, you know, will help keep our casualties down a little bit. There's an outside chance that Calum just comes right at us, right? In which case we have a little bit of province defense, and then, you know, our recruitment of Deer Tribe, like, should be enough to turn this around, hopefully. I'm not expecting Scales Calum to want to immediately jump into kind of an unknown Vanheim, but yeah, you never know. Obviously, this being Full House, you know, they're going to feel similarly, right? I mean, you know, their capital could be like here or here. Like, they're also going to be like, wow, this person's way too close. So we'll see, but yeah, it is kind of looking like, you know, Calum will be our first target, depending on, you know, what else we see out there. We did get a little bit of accidental scouting intel, so I was contacted by Ubar, who politely requested that I get out of their cap circle, which I was a little confused about, and they had messaged the wrong person, so they were actually trying to get a hold of Xibalba. So I am guessing that, you know, Ubar is probably like around here, or maybe, yeah, they tend to like wastes, I think. So like this seems like a fairly likely spot. So anyway, Ubar is probably like somewhere in this crescent here. And it sounds like, you know, Xibalba's had like at least decent expansion in the other direction. So they're maybe not as bad off as I initially thought. And we knew that, it didn't really have sufficient information to gauge their situation exactly. Although, depending on how they handle this situation with Ubar, right, if they piss off Ubar and then they also have Yomi, kind of breathing down their neck, like that could be really bad for the bats. So yeah, we'll have to see how that situation develops, someday eventually when we find a scout province. In the meantime, our one scout is going to move over here. Thankfully, it looks like Yomi has not expanded to the south here, so we are safe from a bump in this province. It's also summer, and our scales, we've taken cold scales. They haven't gotten into places yet, so this mountain pass is going to still be open, and it's late summer though, so it might close next turn because it'll be early fall. Hopefully it does not. If it does, then we're kind of stuck trying to go after these barbarians, which is down to 50. But this is still not looking great. So we may have to hang out, and site search while we recruit like some additional militia garbage to soak up some damage from barbarians. Again, this expansion is like slow and rough, but I'm kind of intentionally, like we could be going faster and riskier, but we would lose, more Vanheers, and we're kind of just going to let our opponents expand for us, which isn't a great strategy in a lot of ways, right? Because they're going to get resources and, we're not going to have resources. So like it's absolutely going to slow us down. But especially early on, people generally can't really afford to properly defend all of their territory. So it's actually easier to take territory from other players, just if you look at it on like a province by province basis, than it is to take it from the independents. Obviously, you have to deal with that player if you start taking their provinces. So in that sense, it's not such a great expansion strategy. But because of the nature of Full House, like you pretty much always end up in an early war anyway. So I don't know. We're gonna see how this like sort of really slow, cautious expansion, followed by like aggressive early wars. Well, at least one war, probably two wars. We're gonna have to keep chopping here to try to make up for lost time. And if Caleb does decide to take this province this coming turn, then we'll probably actually this guy might have to hang out and preach, which I really hate doing because we're finishing off our dwarf. We're getting full Vanheers. We can actually even get a few Herdmen. So next turn we'll be able to get a Vanheers, and we'll have like a larger than normal Vanheer expansion group. And if we combine it with this expansion group, we'll definitely have enough to take out any elephants that are here, and we'll have a large enough army we could maybe even think about the horse tribe. Again, we kind of want just some garbage to soak up some of the damage. So while like that large expansion party could beat the horse tribe, we don't want to lose too many Vanheers doing it. But like this will be a large enough force that we maybe could even just start going after Caleb. So while normally I don't like, combining, usually you want a bunch of smaller expansion parties that are taking like multiple provinces, every turn. And I mean, that still is true in Full House, but I feel like a little less true because, again, things are so tight that, we're going to end up fighting somebody really quickly. So I don't hate having like a larger than normal expansion party. Of course, all of this to justify really lackluster expansion with a faction that, it has good expansion normally. So yeah, the jury is still very much out, and I think that covers turn 5. All right, welcome back to Full House 7th edition, where we are playing Vanheim. It is turn 6. I've already forgotten. Interesting, a message from Ermor. Make of that what you will. I'm undecided. And wow, there's already a throne claim from Marverni. Very nice. So I'm assuming they went with an expander chassis. Although we should take a look at the thrones. We might have gone with some level 1 thrones this time. And I have to say, some of the level 1 thrones are pretty weak. So, if you have a strong enough bless, you can actually take it out with a, decent, or not that many sacreds pretty quickly. So we catch a battle, an expansion battle of Yomis, and this is definitely very relevant to us, although it doesn't look like we're going to get to see a bless. So we just got a few demons here and a lot of Bakemono. We do not love that. We are definitely going to need our bless online before we can handle these guys. We don't love numbers as elves, especially not size 1 numbers. I do think that as Vanheim and probably the elves in general, some recruitment of independence is pretty useful, right? Because these guys really don't like archers. We don't have any archers natively, but there's plenty of indie archers out there, so it is a consideration with Vanheim, I think, where you put your first fort or a fort. Maybe it doesn't have to be the first fort, but I think it's probably most useful early on, right, is like getting yourself access to like useful indie troops that can just fill out your ranks and like help you deal with something like this. Because like, I don't know, I think sending a bunch of elves into this, with the right Vanheim bless, absolutely, like you can ignore Bakemono. I'm not 100% sure we have the right Vanheim bless. I think we'd be able to handle it, but anyway, yeah, this is a lot of stuff, so it definitely rolls over this, although takes some casualty. That is the nature of Bakemono. Wow, yeah, 83. So yeah, that's pretty scary, and could become our problem really soon, right? Both because we have kind of a slow out the gate build, and then personal history between myself and that player. So here is our expansion. I'm sure it will go equally well, if not better. Speaking of recruiting independents, there's some deer tribe that we've purchased, and they're going to run forward and throw their javelins. I think we're also set to throw javelins, yeah, with these elves. Because we have a front line, right, that can, take the javelin exchange for us. You don't want anything too heavily armored, right? I think, light infantry, I think, is probably the happy place, the light infantry with javelins, because they have low enough protection that, enemy archers and javelins are attracted to them, right? Whereas, with the elves, if you get really heavily armored independents, the elves just, right, they have lower protection, so the missiles will go for them. So, while heavy infantry can definitely be useful just to make up the numbers, it is kind of a downside because, the archers tend to ignore them. So you actually, like I said, I think the light infantry with javelins are kind of the happy place for the independents that Vanheim will want. Of course, I am saying this as a complete noob with Vanheim. So as ever, grain of salt, we get some events. Oh wait, truly exceptional. Our scales clearly have not gotten out to places. Well, I don't think this is a particularly great province, so, plus percentage on top of not much is often not great, but we'll take it. And then one of our Dwarven Smiths got wounded, which is kind of sad because he's an Earth 3. Honestly, like all of our Dwarven Smiths are kind of valuable, so this kind of stuff is not great, but at least he survived, so not the end of the world, and I'll catch you guys after the jump. Oh, actually, did we look at the casualties? Yeah, we just one serf. I didn't even realize we had a serf warrior. Anyway, we don't anymore. This went really well, but also, we were up against almost nothing. This was a really easy province. But still, it's nice to have a clean expansion. So yeah, now I'll catch you guys after the jump. All right, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. Definitely could have expanded with this group last turn. Caleb did get back to me after I'd submitted the turn and was pretty friendly, which is sad because we were definitely thinking about ganking them. So maybe we'll try to find someone else, but we're definitely going to have to kill to survive because, yeah, the expansion is going pretty poorly, which I kind of expected out of this build. But anyway, they said that they didn't really have any interest in this province anyway. They were headed elsewhere. So, if we'd taken them at their word, we could have tried to jump in. But waiting a turn, obviously, with our lackluster expansion, like that's not great. But it does provide us, a little bit of chaff out in front. Not much, but it's probably about the right amount. You just have to be careful about, routing your group when the chaff gets destroyed, of course. And slingers, they don't deal a lot of damage, but they do pop glamours, and, depending on how many heavy infantry are there, we could absolutely lose some van here. So hopefully this will reduce our attrition, and also, right, just we get to double check and see if Caleb is on the level, which it appears they are, right? They stuck to their word, they didn't expand there. Speaking of people being on the level, so reached out to this player. Was tempted not to, but I figured, it's probably worth it in this case, and I just suggested, like, hey, I'm going to take 67 in return. I will leave you, 59 for as long as you want, right? So we won't expand into 59, even if we have the opportunity. We don't have the opportunity currently, right, because this mountain pass is closed, but, he doesn't know where our other expansion parties are, and we do actually have an expansion party that could conceivably come up and take it, although I'll tell you right now, this is probably too much stuff for this expansion party. So a bit of an empty deal, right? But as often the way it is with these things, it does mean that like he knows that this province, right, will be his or theirs for as long as they want, and that can, right, then they can go here and like out here, and like they can start to do other expansion things. So it's not like such a deal has no value to them. Of course, this does give away our right if he wants to engineer a bump, he very easily could. That said, like if he reads the map, and I think this player is definitely good enough to read the map, like he'll see that I really only have like one expansion target anyway, unless I'm going to backtrack, which like, maybe, right? Like maybe, I mean, I don't have this province, but of course, yeah, they're aware that, this is a throne, right? Because the thrones are marked, even when you don't have sight on the province itself. So it's pretty unlikely I'm going to backtrack into a throne. So it's like he kind of already knows, right? That it's like, well, if I'm going to expand with this group, I'm going to come here. So if they're interested in bumping and, having an early war, well, I mean, so be it, right? We're going to have to try to figure that out. I don't think we'll die only to a stack of Bakemono, but this would not be great for us. And in some ways, I do think that the barbarians are a pretty good target for, like, I think they're a better target than, say, like this province. Right, because Bakemono kind of don't love numbers and they don't love archers from what, we just saw that. And like, just some barbarians in melee, like, yeah, they hit really hard, but so what? Like the goblins die to everything. This is also a highlands, right, which is a useful terrain type for Yomi, if I'm remembering correctly. On the other hand, like this is a mountain, also a useful terrain type for Yomi. Not like they're really lacking for mountains. I'd say that they got a pretty lucky start for Yomi with like, 4 mountains in their cap circle. So at least from like a free spawn generation standpoint, like they kind of already have what they need, at least in the short term. In terms of whether we would win such a bump, well, I guess first let's talk about, I think we're going to beat, if it's 30 barbarians, pretty high confidence, right? Because like we've got 30 stuff-ish. A little over. Some of that's Deer Tribe, but Deer Tribe have javelins, and barbarians do not love javelins, and then these are our javelin-throwing elves. So in this case, like this is a pretty ideal, okay, maybe not ideal, but for us, an ideal expansion party into barbarians. So I think, if it's 30, we're going to have no problems. Maybe we lose the Deer Tribe, right? That's always on the table. But like also maybe we just rout them with the javelins and like, lose a couple Deer Tribe. That is possible. If this is on the low end, right, we did see like a 60 at one point, which I'm pretty sure is a lie because when our scout was in there, it was more like 30 and now we see it down at 30 again. But, even if it was like 50, that could get scary, definitely. Luckily, like barbarians, they don't have very good skills, so our glamour and our higher defense definitely helps a lot. Like in general, I think the elves do a bit better against barbarians than a lot of other units, but barbarians will harass down your defense like anything else, so there is a tipping point, where it's like, okay, there's too many barbarians and you lose the expansion party. So pretty high hopes against the barbarians, which is super important, right? Because like if we just barely take the province and then Yomi decides to move into us, well, then we definitely lose. Even if we take no losses and Yomi decides to move into us, I think this is legitimately like 70 Bakemono. Yeah, more or less. In fact, more. I don't think the Oni are going to matter too much, right? Like it's really, or the Demon General and his few skeletons. This is definitely a stronger expansion party than, our starting army with some Deer Tribe added into it. So I do think that Yomi would win if they bumped us, even if we had our full strength. On the other hand, Bakemono have pretty terrible morale, right? Like if we take a look, what is their morale? Yeah, it's only 9, and there's a decent, well, they'll be in friendly dominion if they fight here, so like, yeah, 9 or maybe even 10 because of the bonus. But still, routing them is absolutely on the table, and they don't love projectiles, so, if we get lucky with the javelin rolls, get a decent number of kills, we're going to lose the Deer Tribe, absolutely, but, they manage to do some damage, and then our Elven troops, stand long enough and do enough killing to rout, the Ko-Oni, then we might just be able to trigger a general HP rout. So, while, again, I do think that, 8 times out of 10, most times out of 10, more times out of 10, we lose to this expansion party. It's not impossible that we'll win. The other thing, too, is, if he decides to move in here, maybe they have to fight the barbarians, in which case we have a much better chance at winning the subsequent bump. So we'll see. Like I said, I don't have the greatest relations with this player, but on the other hand, they're generally haven't been aggressive early. That said, we do see some kind of nasty looking scales here, and like Yomi I think definitely can be played more as a rush nation and like kind of maybe pushes you more in that direction, I think, not being a Yomi expert whatsoever. And of course, just because a player plays, one way in a game or two doesn't mean they're always going to play that way. So while previously this player hasn't been really aggressive early on, It's entirely possible they have an axe to grind and they look at this and they think like, okay, this is a good opportunity. So, we'll see where that goes. And that's more or less it. Like, recruitment is looking pretty similar, right? We're going to get our Vanhurst out. We're going to, we still don't quite have enough resources. We really do need to clear our cap circle. Unfortunately, we're going to bounce our commander off of this horse tribe. I think, no, we're not recruiting another commander here. Independence-wise, this is actually looking decent, right? We got this kind of crappier heavy infantry that don't have great protection. A little better than some of our elves, but we're planning on recruiting our better elves anyway. And I think they have higher protection. Yeah, they do. And they have a shield as well. So, yeah, it's a bit of a toss-up. Also, there's archers here, so, we can just stick our archers out in front, and, they'll hopefully soak up missile fire. So, a good enough PD type. Okay, we're recruiting a commander here. So, yeah, like I've talked about, I do think this is going to be our first fort, which is all the more reason that we really do want this Highlands, because we're going to need those resources. But before we do that, right, we want to see, okay, how many horse tribe really? But it's not looking good. To that end, we put in a maximum bid, I think 239 gold. They're asking for 150, but what they're asking for doesn't really matter. It's just a question of, can you outbid the other players? These guys, I think, are just some regular spearmen, 30 of them. So, obviously we're, overpaying here, but our expansion is not going great, and we would really like some chaff for this horse tribe, and also, for what are probably some elephants down here. So assuming we get the mercenaries, we might go for either of these provinces immediately. If we don't get the mercenaries, we might actually combine with our starting army, assuming it doesn't get destroyed, and then just do a big old tour like this. And, that'll more or less close out expansion. We'll see what we can snap up over here. But we're going to be pretty small out the gate, which I knew. And again, this is not an optimal strategy in a lot of ways, but I'm going to see, if we can try to make it work, because again, we are planning on being aggressive, as soon as the Bless comes online. So we just need enough territory to not look, completely failed, and to have enough resources to get one other fort up, or maybe two. We definitely will be late on the fort, and that's just partially right because our scales are not great, and then of course couple that with expansion that's not great. We're not getting a ton of money coming in, and then the provinces that we're capturing aren't worth as much because our scales aren't as good. So we're absolutely going to be late on the fort. We might aim for maybe a turn 8 start on this fort, depending on how everything shakes out. I think the other thing to consider is we do really want some independent nature access, because we have no native nature access, and I do think nature is a pretty useful forging path, and we want to do some forging. We're definitely planning on using some thugs. So we do have some options for that, but unfortunately right now they're both in our cap circle, and with the resource situation what it is, and neither of them are particularly appealing provinces, other than the fact that there's nature indies there. So we might hold off on that as well. Probably we'll go for this province since there's fewer resources here, if we end up having to go that way. On the other hand, we may just wait. There are wolf tribe here, although I don't know if the defenders are actually, there is always some sort of pop type, tied to this province. But I can't remember. I think it might not be tied to the throne defenders. So even though there's wolf tribe here, it could just be, a normal indie province. So yeah, slow start, looking dangerous, about what I expected. That covers turn 6. All right, welcome back to Full House 7th edition, where we're playing Vanheim. It is turn 7. I think we have one expand this turn. Oh, and a bump. That is unfortunate. So, talked with Calum, right, to make sure that we weren't going to bump with them, and then chose not to expand, just to be cautious. But of course, that opens us up. So if we'd expanded last turn, we wouldn't have run into this problem. So we also wouldn't have had extra chaff, and I was hoping to keep the casualties low. This is just a ping against that horse tribe, and there's a lot of horse tribe here. This is not ideal. So, 42 horse tribe. Are there provinces out there that have more horse tribe? Yes. But is that a lot? Also, yes. So we'll have to think about that one. At least our commander survives. Then we actually had a scout in this province. Oh boy, yeah, we're going to lose this in all likelihood. This is a ton of wind riders. And then this might trigger, we'll have to talk to Arco. But we can at least see the bless. Okay, yeah, larger seems pretty popular. All right, so attack skill 4, magic weapons, blood surge, dark vision, larger. Like, yeah, I think this is a perfectly serviceable bless. No resists, obviously, so in the mid game, this is going to be a bit painful. But then again, Arcocephaly is a nation that has like pretty good elemental access, really good elemental access, and they get some nature as well. So they should be able to cast spells like to cover, the relevant bless or the relevant resists. And then, yeah, now we are attacking that group of Wind Riders, and we're right. We kind of have the reverse, right? We have all the resists, but none of the stats yet. So we're going to get obliterated here, I think, especially probably, well, I don't know. We'll see. If these guys are set to attack closest, maybe we have a chance. No, yeah, they're attack rear. So the glamour definitely helps us some. Vanhears are like just super dangerous in general. But, with no stats, like these guys actually have pretty good defense. Like, yeah, I don't think we get any kills there. And that's really unfortunate. Okay, we get 1 kill. And this is definitely the situation that I was hoping to avoid with more cautious expansion, which, maybe this was inevitable, especially on the smaller map like this. It's like bumps are pretty likely. Yeah. And I guess we had 2 expansions lined up, so that's good at least. Yeah, this is our main group. No sacreds in this group. Right, we're going up against the barbarians. Yeah, I'm sure this will go fine. Our javelins mostly miss. Our deer tribe are going to get absolutely obliterated. So this is starting to look scary. We might lose both expansion parties in one turn, but you can see that it's really difficult for the barbarians to actually hit the elven troops. The glamour helps a lot, and then the high defense also helps. So that does work out for us. Like I said, we were probably going to lose our chaff there, but we lose none of our elven troops, right? So this essentially works out. I mean, okay, ideally we don't lose the chaff at all, right? And the barbarians are just driven away more or less by the javelin volleys. But only losing the deer tribe is perfectly acceptable. So a bit of a mixed bag, for this turn. I'll have to reach out to the Arcocephaly player. Possibly we don't attack Calum, right? And maybe try to convince Calum to be our ally, right? In an early war against Arcocephaly. Arcocephaly, early age especially, tends to expand really aggressively because they have really good expansion, because Wind Riders are really good. I mean, the same is true of Vanheim normally, although Vanheim's sacreds, the Vanhears are much slower, right? So it's easier to, reinforce areas with Arcocephaly, because their sacreds all fly. So anyway, if they have expanded really aggressively, it's entirely likely. I feel like Arcocephaly is often a nation that kind of overexpands, overextends during expansion because it's so easy, and then they just end up pissing off a lot of neighbors. So if they aren't managing that carefully, we could probably find a lot of built-in allies, especially if people are like, oh, well, if Vanheim's attacking, they should be able to, carry a lot of that weight. Which hopefully will be true once the Bless comes online, but we'll see. So anyway, we do have one unexpected event, which will not. Oh, holy whoa! I always forget it. It takes a while, right, for scales to spread out into provinces. So 21 water gems with Misfortune 3 is crazy. Let's just take a quick peek and make sure. No, we have 2 Misfortune there. So yeah, that must have just been a really lucky roll. Anyway, I'll catch you guys after the jump. All right. This is the situation and what we did about it. The back half of these turns will be retrospectives until turn 12, so we are going to lose some diplomacy information. As I recall, there weren't too many major shifts before turn 12, as of course, we are waiting for all of our bless to come online before we knife someone. But things are not going well, definitely can say that. So it's turn 7, and we have 6 provinces. That is behind schedule. We also have not started a fort. Traditionally, if things are going really well, you start your fort on turn 6. It's turn 7. No fort started, not even close, right? We have no money saved up. We're putting everything into expanding, and expansion is not going well. So that's less than ideal. We are going to ping this province where we suspect that there will be some elephants. There's a little bit of danger that we get drawn in with Arcocephaly. But we don't share too much of a border, so, wasn't too worried about it. It's a possibility, but probably not. Even though we did lose that expansion party, we do have a decent amount of Vanhears stacking up here. We are, doing as full recruitment as we can. Resources are still our problem right now.
So we'll see. We may end up combining against these horse tribe because we are sneaking down this expansion party. In retrospect, maybe should have gone for this. Hard to say. I don't think we have any chaff left with this. Yeah, that would be a dicey fight. Really depends on, how many heavy cavalries are there. Oh, speaking of chaff, we are still recruiting some deer tribe, which in retrospect, I don't know, hard to say. I do think recruiting independence is useful during expansion because, again, we are resource locked here. So we have some extra gold to play with, but deer tribe are pretty bad. And, it would be nice to be saving for a fort. So I don't know, hard to say. Our expansion is going badly enough that it's like, well, we kind of do need some help. I do believe we put in for some mercenaries. Yeah, so we bid on the mercenaries. Quick spears, they aren't fantastic, but they're not bad either. And that will provide us with a significant boost. Of course, we are kind of running out of places to expand. So, other than this one province to the north, we know that, Xibalba's right here. So, we can really only get this one province. And, of course, that'll bring us quite close to Xibalba. Otherwise, we'd be in their cap circle. We're fully bordered on Yomi now. And then, to the east, we're pretty much blocked. Maybe this province is independent, but, won't be for long. It's pretty much bordered on almost all sides by other powers. So, we're kind of limited to the south and southwest here. But the terrain is really not in our favor. It's headed into winter, and of course we took Cold Dominion, so these mountain passes will probably close. And there's a throne that's probably going to block us here. It does depend on what defenders are there, but yeah, it's going to be kind of difficult to get through this area. And then, of course, there's a river here. Our Cold Dominion will help there, so we should be able to freeze the river and maybe get out that direction. And of course, we can go directly south potentially if nobody's expanded down here. But yeah, it's the nature of Full House. So we knew this was going to be the case, and that we're going to have to take an early war. So we'll see who that early war ends up being. And I think that more or less covers turn 7.
All right, welcome back to Full House 7th edition, where we are playing Vanheim. It is turn 8, and we are trying to see how crippled of an early game you can have and still recover from. We do have an expansion, which is, we're just pinging. I was going to say, I didn't think we had an expansion. Iron Skin Quickness, yeah. So there's a wizard hiding in here, 2 wizards. Fantastic. Oh man, this guy's fire too and loaded up. At least we have fire resistance on the Bless. In some ways, this is better than elephants. Water elementals are really going to suck though. Yeah, this is not great. We might be able to get an HP route, right? Most of the rest of this is pretty garbage. We don't care too much about the Minotaur. But we definitely are going to want to hit that with quite a bit of stuff. And yeah, never trust slingers, definitely. So we have some unexpected events. Yeah, this is feeling a little more misfortune-like. This is especially rough because it's a nice province. Well, I guess in a lot of ways it doesn't matter. And then, hey, we get some Dominion. That is nice. So I will take that. And then we do actually finally get a mercenary company, which we, paid through the teeth for. But, considering how things are going and, we tried a couple smaller bids on some other mercenaries that, didn't go our way. I felt probably worthwhile. This is going to delay our first fort even from the already delayed position that it would have been starting from. So that's definitely not good. But yeah, we're probably just going to use one massive expansion party now, which isn't great, but we have some tough provinces left to finish out in our cap circle. And I think that, certainly to our north and our east, there isn't really much room left for expansion, and we really don't have much of an idea what's to our south and our west, because those are where the hard provinces are. So once we break through those hard provinces, then we might start to split stuff out if there's anything left for us. If not, then we'll have a relatively large force that maybe we can use to attack someone with once our god wakes up, which will hopefully be on time. So yeah, I'll catch you guys after the jump.
All right, this was the situation and what we did about it. As threatened, we are combining everything, including the mercenaries, to attack this horse tribe. This is definitely overkill. And in retrospect, maybe would have tried to take our mercenaries and elves to hit this province. It's a decent chance that puts us into conflict with Xibalba, but then again, right, it's a tight map. Yomi's right here. We're pretty much right up against their cap circle. So, what's the difference, right, being right up against Xibalba's cap circle? It's not uncommon. There is a risk that we would lose this in a bump with Xibalba, definitely. But considering that we'd be risking not our sacreds, probably worth it. On the other hand, right, this way, we should be able to roll immediately into this wizard province, which with only our sacreds, we'd probably be fine. We have the resistances. So it's really just I think the water elementals that would be the wild card. And I mean, yeah, water elementals could certainly kill a lot of our sacreds. So we are trying to reduce casualties in this phase where we don't have all of our bless online. But like I said, with the benefit of hindsight, this was probably too cautious. Otherwise, not too much going on. So, we've seen Ermor up here. We're kind of circling back around. It does look like Arcocephaly has expanded decently well. I don't think we know. Yeah, we don't know where their capital is yet. But, we can see that they seem to extend a decent amount. As far as we can tell, I mean, it's hard to say. We haven't really scouted the rest of Yomi's territory, but they got a decent expansion as far as Full House goes. Otherwise, we don't really know a whole lot. We don't know anything about Calum or any of our other potential neighbors. We are doing full recruitment here, recruiting another dwarf. Sadly, our other dwarf ran into air, which it's a useful cross path, but I do think the other ones are more useful. And in terms of research, I think we finished Construction 1, yeah, now we're working on Construction 2, so research hasn't really changed, going pretty slowly, pretty normal for Vanheim, though it is quite early. And I think that more or less covers Turn 8.